But to the old subject of Victorian quarantine, relax, there's some new information. We're not going over old ground here. Daniel Andrews, of course, has gone out of his way multiple times to tell us that the rejigged version of hotel quarantine that had its very own minister was so much different than the previous one. Remember, he even kind of said it was the gold standard before locking everyone down.
I can foreshadow for you that we're not going to anywhere near the capacity that New South Wales has or other states have, and I don't make any apology for that. We will have less capacity because we have a different model and, I believe, higher standards.
Well, I think within a week of him saying that, there was, of course, the lockdown, not just of Melbourne, where, remember, 5 of the local government areas of the 6 that had traces and cases were all, of course, in the northwest of Melbourne. Yet you in regional Victoria, if you're watching us via Sky News on Win, you remember that week where you weren't able to leave the house unless you had 4 good reasons to do so, when businesses had to throw everything out ahead of Valentine's Day. You've heard the record before. But the common sense about why lockdowns need to be avoided, well, it's just as important as ever. Well, we learn today that a bloke who has been a nurse in and around the hotel quarantine system, his name is Finney Matthew, he has some problems with the new version of hotel quarantine, the one that was, until very recently, apparently the gold standard. I feel seriously worried about the quarantine system in Victoria. I believe what is happening is not what is being presented to the public, says this nurse of some standard. Now, he talks about how staff were apparently moving between hotels. This is even in the rejigged version of hotel quarantine, exactly the opposite of what that show trial, the Coate inquiry, recommended. Apparently, pharmaceutical products were delayed and staff hadn't completed online face-to-face competencies, and complaints of tough and unfair rostering. All of that reporting came out of The Age this weekend. And remember when Daniel Andrews said there's no problems with the contact tracing system? That's, of course, what a smother report from the Victorian Upper House, including, surprise, surprise, Fiona Patten, tried to deliver. But there was a dissenting opinion from non-government MPs, and we basically count her as a government MP, that said, yeah, there's still problems with contact tracing. But Daniel Andrews had his report and had very few cases, so he tried to tell the people of Victoria this.
Our contact tracers are pulling this up. Contact tracing has never been stronger. Can it be stronger again? Well, I don't think there's any great massive improvement that can be made, but we're looking for it.
Well, again, good reporting by the Sunday Age in particular today, because guess what they found? Problems with contact tracing. Now, you know about the absurdity of patient X, who, of course, was told that he had coronavirus by the contact tracing system after he was already in intensive care. But let's read along here. That a health department source has told the Sunday Age the contact tracing calls to close contacts were paused for hours on February 8. Why? Because it was discovered that tracers have been given the wrong list of people to call. Instead, they were calling people from back in the Black Rock cluster back in January, rather than the ones that were actually close to the Holiday Inn and the stuff closer to the Australian Open. Put simply, about 44% of close contacts that were linked to the Grand Hyatt and Holiday Inn clusters were not contacted within the national standard of 48 hours. There was another lockdown, and this is the big quote. There was another lockdown, and there just didn't need to be, because it was purely about the competence of the new system. Now, that's somebody who was apparently high-ranking in the quarantine system, spoke under the promise of anonymity because they didn't have the ability to speak publicly. So yet again, this bloke told fibs that the quarantine system was awesome, despite the fact that it ended up being the reason why there were so many cases, and because they couldn't contact trace the so many cases that existed, they went into a lockdown. And because they couldn't be bothered making sure that there was a difference between the people who lived in Melbourne, where there was basically bugger all of it, versus the entire state, you were locked down. Yet ask anyone on a street, thank you, Chairman Dan, for keeping us safe. It's rubbish. The facts always come out, yet, as always, there's such little attention paid to it. We're paying it, and well done to the Sunday Age today for what they reported.